Good afternoon. We gather today as family and friends of Nadine Keith to remember and celebrate her life. My name is Sherry Woodbury, and I'm the minister here at First Unitarian Church of Omaha, where Nadine was an active part of this community for almost 20 years. On behalf of her family, I welcome you all. Whether you were able to come in person or are joining us online, we are glad that you are here to celebrate her life. Though we in this room represent many different connections to Nadine, family, friends, neighbors, fellow churchgoers, we come together for the shared purpose of marking the end of her life. Let us acknowledge that those in this room have lost a dear one, changing our own lives. Whether we were in Nadine's company quite recently or had not seen her for a long time, her loss may seem sudden and unexpected. It may not feel real sometimes that she is gone. Nadine's was a bright and caring spirit, and we may have expected to be with her longer, to talk to her again, see her again, but that was not to be. As we share grief, gratitude, and memories today, let us make room for all of the feelings that may arise: sorrow, joy and anger, numbness, loss, or shock, appreciation, tears, laughter, confusion. No authentic feeling is out of place in this time. Together, we reconnect to our relationship with Nadine, and we celebrate her unique and special life. At this time, I would like to invite forward her granddaughter, Kilene, and great-grandson, Jonah, to light the chalice. Any who are participating from home, if you'd like to light a candle or chalice there, you are welcome to do so. Granddaughter Christy Mayfield comes forward now to share a reading.
Good afternoon. My name is Christy. I'll be reading a poem by one of Nadine's favorite poets, Ted Kooser. The title is Porch Swing in September. The porch swing hangs fixed in a morning sun that bleaches its gray slats, its flowered cushion whose flowers have faded like those of summer, and a small brown spider has hung out her web on a line between porch and post and chain, so that no one may swing without breaking it. She is saying that it's time that the swinging we're done with. Time that the creaking and pinging and popping that sang through the ceiling were past. Time now for the soft vibrations of moths, the wasp tapping each board for an entrance, and the cool dewdrops to brush from her work every morning, one world at a time. I just want to say really quickly that Nadine inherited me as a granddaughter, and she never once treated me any differently. She led a beautiful, eclectic life, and I'm going to treasure every memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I invite you to rise if you wish and join in singing number 96 in the Gray Hymnal. I Cannot Think of Them as Dead. I think this is a tune some of us may not have heard before, so our pianist John will play it through once before we sing. Number 96. may be seated. We have more folks arrive. We have a full house today. There are some seats in the front here, and the service is also streaming downstairs in the basement. At this time, we will hear reflections from several people close to Nadine. I'd like to start with her dear friend, Virginia Walsh. Virginia, if you'd like to come forward to this microphone. There'll be a time later in the service for anyone who feels so moved to share a memory or a few sentences about Nadine. But we'll start with Virginia now. Yes, please. Oh. Would you like someone else to go first so you can catch your breath?
Hello. I'm so happy to be here with you today to remember Nadine Keith, who was a dear friend to me from about 2004. It doesn't go back a great length of time, but it's enough to know her. She was primarily my playmate. I would go to things that were fun with her, to film streams, to theater, to the Blue Barn, to places that were problematic in the political sense. Because the thing about Nadine was she was always making good trouble, wasn't she? I met Nadine initially because my husband introduced her to me. He was on the board of Planned Parenthood in Omaha, and he came home from a board meeting one night and said, "There is a really remarkable new board member. I want you to meet her. Her name is Nadine Keith." And I did meet her, and my life has been enriched ever since. I'm a Virgo. Virgos have files. I have a file, a manila file, on Nadine Keith, and it is a wad. And it is full of problematic political events, all of which I went to with Nadine, and I will so miss going with her in the future. I did find in that file some things, not very many, that I want to share with you, but just, I think, 3. This is the folder I picked up when Carl Keith was being memorialized. That was in 2008. He was, as you know well, the night managing editor of the World Herald for many, many years. And when I was active in the women's movement, I used to regularly go down to the World Herald and fight with Carl Keith about the coverage, the coverage of various events. But eventually he helped me understand what a newspaper has to do. And then I have to confess, I didn't see how there even could be newspapers because it's so hard to do. And he was publishing at that time, the World Herald had 7 editions. They went to 7 editions, and that's a lot. There were a couple of things I couldn't resist. When I met Nadine, she was living in a historical house on Oakview. Is that right? Yeah, okay, that. Yeah, on a bluff in Council Bluffs. And her house was a historic house. And she celebrated the birthday, the 100th birthday of her house. And this is the folder that I received that day. It says, Nadine Keith was born May 3rd, 1937. The house at 415 Oakland Avenue in Council Bluffs was built in 1912. We are celebrating with an open house on May 5th, 2012 at Oakland. But that was a big occasion for her, and I think for all of us, because we did feel that we were really lucky even then to have somebody like Nadine Keith who would live in our neighborhood. Later, when I was able to get better acquainted with Nadine, she would enjoy very much convening people from different parts of her life to meet monthly, to eating ethnic. Eating ethnic. Are there people here who were a part of that? Eating ethnic. There's a couple back there. Oh, how lovely, how lovely. Well, what I brought today was a photo. Somebody took a picture of us at one time. It's not remarkable at all, but it shows that the solidarity of the group extended to, like, taking what we were doing was we were venturing into other cultures. Because, for instance, here is her schedule for the fall of 2014. For the rest of the year, September 10th, Taste of Thailand. October 8th, Mud Bugs Cajun Cuisine in Bellevue. November 12th, Katie's Greek Restaurant and Taverna in Omaha. What we did each time was take a little culture tour with the food and the atmosphere of a place foreign to us. So she was taking us on travels. And I thought that was characteristic of Nadine. It goes with her making good trouble, because that's what happens when you travel to different places. It's very hard to say goodbye to a playmate. I'm very happy to be able to join with you in remembering her and telling her farewell and congratulations on a life well lived. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. And now, Tina Janc, who's been in the family a long time through marriage, will share.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to say goodbye to the best woman I've ever known. And I know many of you feel that too. In preparation for this, I attempted to write down every organization that Nadine was involved with. It was not possible, and I knew I was forgetting something, and as soon as I got to her apartment today, what did I see but a plaque in her honor from an So I'm just going to focus on a few of the ones that I know are very important to her. I'll start with her commitment to LGBTQ+ rights. This was very important to Nadine. She worked hard for that community. She marched for their equal rights. She proudly flew pride flags, marched in pride parades, and made herself known as an ally. This had a profound impact on her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren, who all have her strong desire for equality and who saw themselves in her flags and in her eyes and in her heart and knew that they were loved and supported no matter who they were. She also, as Virginia mentioned, was a fierce fighter for women's rights. She worked with the League of Women Voters to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. She traveled to Washington, D.C. to protest the lack of rights for women. She proudly marched beside her sisters, and she proudly wore her pussy hat. Nadine was a long-standing member of Planned Parenthood. She worked hard to keep a branch of Planned Parenthood here or in Council Bluffs available. This was partly because she saw firsthand the need for family planning and sexual health resources for the young women that she taught in her adult education classes. There was a need, so Nadine worked for a solution. She laid the groundwork for the equality that me, us, our daughters, our granddaughters, and generations to come will enjoy. Of course, ladies, our fight is not over. We owe it to Nadine. Put those pussy hats back on, guys, and go out there for those women who fought so hard for us. Okay. But when I think of Nadine, community comes to mind. Her community, her communities, were a lot, and she had several. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Bear with me. Oh, I know, I was going to continue with her activism because we're not finished yet. Nadine was a proud Bernie-supporting liberal and let all the lawmakers know it. I can't even imagine how many letters she wrote, how many emails she sent, how many phone calls she made. I just wonder how many phone banks did she work for candidates that she cared about? How many miles did she walk canvassing, registering voters, making good trouble? She engaged in all of her communities, because when we think about her, communities comes to mind. She, be it her friends that she made through the Omaha World Herald, where her husband Carl retired, her friends in her Oakland Avenue neighborhood, her new friends, the gardeners at Elmwood Tower, or the many people at her church, this church. She was active in all those communities and made friends everywhere she went. And she was a traveler, and she went many places and has friends all over the world. Nadine was a social person, and she lived that fully. She left the farm for college, where her eyes were opened to a much wider, much more exciting world. She really never looked back. Her vibrancy thrummed to the beat of an urban life. She loved restaurants and theater, art, and farmers markets. She loved the friendships that she made so easily. On her fridge, right this moment, is a very full September calendar, and somewhere nearby There is an October calendar equally full and a November calendar equally full. I am sorry for those of us who were part of those plans. But by the way, I can tell you, she is very sorry she was unable to cancel with you in person. She would want me to extend my apologies and make sure you know that that is just not like her. We will be reminded not only by the many engagements she can't keep, but by the memories and joys we shared with her. We will be reminded of her because she added light to our lives, and now the world is a little darker. Nadine was a daughter, sister, wife, aunt, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and she was my mother-in-law. She stomped out my ability to make horrible mother-in-law jokes, though. She was just really good at it. She didn't blink to become a grandparent to my children or to my sister's kids, to Kilene's siblings, to Kilene's friends. She opened her arms and said, "Here, let me fill this void." Our family will always cherish the memories of holidays, those big holiday meals, and the cookies that she made, and the children running around screaming, a few generations of them. I will never forget how much work it was to help her put those meals together, but also how much that bonded us together. We will never forget how much fun was spent around her table, both eating and playing apples to apples after, laughing, so much laughing. She was Mimi, and I can say nothing to ease the pain of losing Mimi. My heart aches for us, but we have to honor what she was, and we can do that by spreading her light throughout the world, taking that light into ourselves and going forth in service. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And now we have some words from a church friend of Nadine's, Elaine Wells. We're going to see that on the screen here.
I'm sorry that I can't begin to thank you. Nadine, to those of us who attended the UU fundraiser. If you looked up the word kind in the dictionary, her picture would be the illustration beside it. I had the good fortune of seeing her kindness in action when we taught GED students at the Council Bluffs Adult Education Center in the 1980s. She was also a volunteer for Planned Parenthood at that time. She was always serene, Nadine, to me, in spite of the painful life challenges that she faced with such grace and dignity. I remember several decades ago when she came back to the church after the death of a family member and sang Amazing Grace. I doubt that there was one dry eye in the whole sanctuary that day. Again, after the death of her husband Carl, she returned to our congregation and dove into service on many fronts. I'd like to list just a few that I'm aware of. She was on the caring committee, and she called church members during the early days of COVID to be sure they were all right. She co-led the Palestine-Israel study group in 2016, and she traveled several times to Romania to visit our sister church there. She participated in a listening circle. She worked in the UU the Vote campaign to support candidates who strive for peace, justice, and the environment, and she was working for the Tony Vargas campaign until the day she died. She was often the worship associate on Sundays, and I loved her clear, mellow voice as she guided us through the service. Nadine had always done her homework, so her performance in whatever she did was perfect. Last, I'd like to mention that Nadine was a great cook, and for decades, she organized an ethnic eating group. I will miss sampling foreign cuisines with her. We were members of a movie group organized by Sharon Conlon, so I'll imagine sharing a little bag of popcorn with her whenever we go to the film streams. What this church, our nation, and our world needs more of is people like my friend Nadine Keith.
Granddaughter Christy has prepared a lovely slideshow, which we'll watch now and see some pictures of Nadine, and we'll have a little music to accompany that. Thank you, Christy, for putting that together. I'm going to invite you, if you're so moved at this moment, to turn to someone next to you, and if it feels right to you, offer them a hug. While you're finishing up your hugs, I invite Dave Richardson to come forward. Dave served on the worship arts team with Nadine here, and he shares a selection from Walt Whitman.
The words are from Walt Whitman, but I think you'll agree the sentiment is pure Nadine. This is what you should do. Love the earth and the sun and the animals. Despise riches. Give alms to everyone that asks. Stand up for the stupid and crazy. Devote your income and labor to others. Hate tyrants. Argue not concerning God. Have patience and indulgence toward the people. Take off your hat to nothing known or unknown, not to any man or woman, or any number of men or women. Re-examine what you've been told at school, or in church, or in any book. Dismiss what insults your soul, and your very flesh shall be a great poem.
Poet Lord Alfred Tennyson wrote, "I am a part of all that I have met. Nadine is a part of all who knew her." During this time, I invite anyone who would like to do so to share a memory of Nadine. And I'm guessing we might have quite a few of those, so I'll ask you to keep your memory brief. You might have a story, or simply want to reflect about the kind of person she was, or what was meaningful to you about knowing her. If you're here in the sanctuary, you can come forward to the microphone here in front so that all can hear you well. And I do have a handheld mic that I'm happy to bring to anyone who may not be mobile, so just raise your hand and we'll do that. Those who are joining us on Zoom, if you wish to share, we are experimenting with being able to bring your image and sound into the sanctuary here on this screen. You can indicate your desire to share by using the raise hand feature under the reactions button, if you know how to do that, or put a comment in the chat to let our Zoom host, Gary, know that you'd like to speak. Or if all of that sounds confusing, just physically put your camera on and physically raise your hand and Gary will spot you. Please know also that any text shared in the Zoom comments or the Zoom chat or the YouTube comments will be passed on to the family, so anything written can be shared as well. Okay, I think I have one person I know who needs a mic brought to her, so we'll start with her, and if anybody else wants to come forward and line up, you're welcome to do that. You want to come up?
Don and Brenda Summerside. I remember Carl and Nadine's intimate wedding in the Oakland Avenue house, a home Nadine loved for over 50 years. I can picture a sweet, slow dance she shared with Carl and the love for the big band music. Many trips to Kansas City and other parts with our World Herald group. Fat Tuesday at Nadine's, etouffee. Who knew there was a Fat Tuesday? Or king cake. I was raised a Catholic. We just had Ash Wednesday. Our birthday group. Lunch and Triple E to follow, fun times. Our numbers now down to 4. Oops, I got a new page. Oh, that's the back of it. Sorry. You can take that one. Nadine, a guardian angel, nursing Carl through his diabetes, illness, providing a safe home for Kile and Jonah and care, and her friends. Besides all these other groups, she and I joined others to form a Quester chapter almost 25 years ago. For you that don't know what Questers is an international organization for the restoration and preservation of antiques. We made many trips, many programs, many hunts for treasures. I can't read my writing. My last note is, Nadine was strong, giving, and a gift. Thank you for the times we shared. Love you.
I'm Don, and like Brenda, my story begins and my memories begin at the Oakland address also. Over the years, probably many of you, or maybe most of you here today, climbed those steep steps from the front yard. I think I could have been dubbed Mount Keith in the Oakland Avenue Alps. And as Brenda said, the first time that many of us made that climb was nearly a half century ago. And that was, as Brenda said, Nadine and Carl's wedding ceremony in the dining and living rooms there at 415 Oakland. That marriage brought my longtime friend and boss, Carl, into Nadine's family. And it brought Nadine into the World Herald family and into a family within a family, a smaller group, Carl's Nightside News staff. Nadine had an enthusiastic, as you've been told, interest in both the news and life and the news producers. She was both an advocate for and a constructive critic of our newspaper. And she became friends with many of our reporters and editors. And during Carl's long career as night managing editor, the Keiths were almost like, I'd say, house parents for about 20 years of editors and reporters. Carl directed the nightly production of the multiple editions, as been reported, and Nadine would join him in hosting the annual holiday parties and many other social gatherings at their home and elsewhere. And meanwhile, over those last 50 years, the climb up the Keith steps became ever more strenuous for us. And after a drink or 3 at a Keith party, the descent became even more perilous. So we oldsters were very happy to see Nadine move to the Elmwood Tower, where we had a great time celebrating her birthday just a few months ago. And it seems unfair that she wasn't able to spend more time at the top of the tower, where she could almost see as far as those Oakland Alps across the Missouri River. So Brenda and I say goodbye to Nadine and the memories of those gatherings in Oakland, as well as trips to Husker games, Quester conventions, and decades of friendship. So from Brenda and I, happy trails and rest in peace, Nadine. Thank you.
Take one more here, and then we'll go to somebody online. You go ahead now. You go ahead.
For all of you that don't know me, I'm Kilene's mom. I remember when I was 14 and I had met Nadine. My first impression of her was how classy she was, always put together with a smile on her face. I always looked up to her. I learned a lot from her. Education was important to her. Some of the things she taught me were things like gardening, raising kids, entertaining guests, which I loved to do because of her. Too many to mention, really. Oh yes, baking. Even though she was an expert at baking, that was something I was not very good at. Just ask my kids. Nadine was very special to me. She was my mentor, my friend, and a bonus mom. I could always talk and ask for advice without being judged. She only wanted the best for everyone. My family and I will always cherish the times we spent with Nadine. Her love, her kind words, and humor will forever be with us. And one last thing before I go, Nadine would want me to say, "Go Big Red."
Let's hear from one of our online participants now.
When I decided that I must leave for the West Coast for college, I was determined to go. I chose my school and made my decision, all without ever visiting. I hadn't even been on an airplane yet. My family could not afford to send me, and I was working on. Grandma Nadine said, "You can't move to a place you've never visited." So she bought plane tickets for us, and we went together. And it was amazing. I fell in love with Northern California, and she helped me do that. And during my time in California, I met my dear friends who I'm still very close with, and they all know and love Nadine, partially because I could never resist the urge to tell folks about my amazing grandmother, and also because she always made efforts to visit and spent time getting to know my friends and my life out here. Thank you, Grandma, for helping break some of those West Coast stereotypes about Midwestern grandmothers. Oh, you expected a meek little old lady, conservative granny? Well, I would like you to meet my activist, radical, cursing grandma. She's been to more protests than you, for sure. My activist feminist grandma was something I was always proud of, and I knew she was proud she knows how much of an inspiration she is to me. When Brett and I moved here to Oregon, to our forever home, Nadine was the first person to visit. We didn't know the area at all, and once again, she helped me explore and fall in love with a new place. Today, I feel like I can never move anywhere again, because I won't have her to explore it with and to find those cool spots. Last March, I won a wine tasting at a raffle, and I put it aside, thinking I will take Grandma to this. She visits every fall, and now it sits on the shelf, waiting for a September visit that could never happen. I want so badly to take her into all of our favorite spots, to walk the garden and forest with her as she identifies all my plants for me. I'm just going to miss her forever. Thank you.
Anyone else want to come forward and share? Of course, there'll be time to reminisce downstairs after the service or in the Zoom chat room, breakout room after the service. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Reverend Portia Cabot of Clare Memorial United Methodist Church. And I came today dressed as I am because I'm working and had a clinic today, but I want to thank those members that emailed me to tell me of this loss. Nadine was one of a kind. She was a true servant of the Lord, one that never grew tired, even though she told me how proud she was of me and how we could get in good trouble. But I knew that she would say, Reverend, don't worry about how you dress. Just come if you find the time. And so I want to say to the family that my heart aches. It's as if I lost someone close to me, someone that supported the ministries as long as we've been a sister church here with First Unitarian. We have met at both churches, both congregations coming together and to share. And when I would come over here to preach, Nadine was my pulpit associate. Just this past couple of months ago, I was here and we worshiped together and talked about light. But today I want to say that what took place on Monday, on Labor Day, that I could hear the Lord saying to his servant who heard the call to say, when the Spirit says do, you do. But she also heard, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And so on Labor Day, from the work of a servant well done, she was able to go a little bit higher and serve the Lord in more ways. Because those of us that knew her and she served through us, that we can continue to do the work that needs to be done, not only here in the city of Omaha, but also in the state of Nebraska and even in the United States of America. May God continue to keep you. And for those grandchildren that would ride with her in the summer when she would come over to Clare, and drop off food for the pantry, bring clothes or items for the giveaway. That was a servant that was willing to share. So thank you for this opportunity to come by and to share with you, to shed a tear, but to say, I'll see you later, alligator.
Thank you, Pastor Portia. It would mean a lot to her that you are here. At this time, I invite you to sing with me again. You can stand if you're here and that's comfortable for you, or if sitting is better, it's fine to stay seated. We'll sing number 18, What Wondrous Love. What wondrous love. It seems like a fitting song to honor and celebrate the life of Nadine Keith, doesn't it? I haven't had the privilege of knowing Nadine for as long as many of you. I've been here a couple of years. But it didn't take long to see clearly her character. Nadine was someone you could count on to be there for others and to do what needs to be done. She cared deeply. In the case of someone with such a great heart, whether you knew them well, like many of you, or simply admired that person in the community, it really hurts to lose them. And when the loss is sudden and unexpected, as Nadine's was, it may be even harder to assimilate. How can we accept that she is gone? Pithy sayings don't help, at least they don't help me. I found myself digging deeper, looking for succor in the wisdom literature of the world's religions. Many may recognize these words from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to give things away. So is everything appropriate somehow in its own time. The ancient book from which these words come does offer further wisdom for a time of mourning, a time of facing death and celebrating life. Ecclesiastes meets the big questions upon which faiths are built and offers a kind of minimalist approach in terms of the answers that it gives us. Perhaps you recall that this text from the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible is world-weary. It speaks repeatedly of vanity in the sense that all of our efforts in life are in vain. It means pointless, with no predictable results, for we're not really in control, and the rules of this game of life are not as straightforward as one of the other wisdom books, Proverbs, would have us believe. In contrast to the Proverbs, the writer of Ecclesiastes sees no justice in the world. The same fate of death comes to all, and following the rules is no guarantee of one's outcomes in life. But still, this teacher argues that we should abide by the sayings of the wise and to know that God will bring every deed into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil, in the end. The foundational belief in Yahweh's order is not shaken by all the qualifications that Ecclesiastes offers. This text offers a bare bones faith. That's how it strikes me. It's one that might speak to us, regardless of whether we pray to a God called Yahweh or whether we pray at all. We can't know what will happen or why, it teaches. We certainly can't control life. Yet we must still live by the right we know and enjoy whatever comes to us in this moment. Food, love, our work, wealth, whatever comes into our life. Now, the book does have an overall pessimistic tone, but despite this, Ecclesiastes carries a fundamental affirmation of the goodness of life, writing in chapter 9, verse 7 through 10, "Go, eat your bread with enjoyment, and drink your wine with a merry heart." Sounds like Nadine did plenty of that. "For God has long ago approved what you do. Let your garments always be white. Do not let oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the spouse whom you love all the days of your vain life that are given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do with your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going." I hear this teacher not saying to give up, to despair, but to enjoy what you have and to do what is given to you in each moment that you are afforded to live. This wisdom book also speaks to death, saying, "It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of everyone, and the living will lay it at heart." I hear these words as a reminder of how death can be our teacher. When we go to the house of mourning, it can prompt us to ask the question, what is really important in our own lives? What will we do with our brief time? Just as the golden leaves of autumn, so beautiful and evanescent for a few weeks each year, can do. Faced with the reality of how fleeting is life and how certain is death, we may respond not only with sorrow, but by cherishing the time we have, the relationships that enrich our life, the kinds of relationships that clearly were so important to Nadine. We can respond by making the most of this. Ultimately, this ancient wisdom book instructs, just as you do not know how the breath comes to the bones in the mother's womb, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. I hear Ecclesiastes teaching people to accept and respect the mystery of life. Many have already spoken how, unlike the writer of Ecclesiastes, Nadine was not content simply to enjoy her own life, although she clearly did that too. But she wanted to support the people around her, her family, her friends, her church community, the people in the community affected by politics, everyone. She even wanted to make life better for other members of our wider human family, people that she did not know and would never meet. I suspect that Nadine's involvement here at church is a window into how she was everywhere she went, with everyone she met. At a carrying team meeting we had about a week and a half ago that Nadine was at, she mentioned that that particular team was an early way that she got involved here at First Unitarian. And she specifically lifted up the memorials team, which we've got folks like that, and she would be with them today if this wasn't her service, who are preparing lovely things for us to eat and enjoy and visit together after the service. She found it meaningful to support people at the crucial moment of grief and celebration. I hear in your stories that wherever she went, whether she was spending time with youngsters in her family, or hanging out with her friends, or checking in on ill church members, her caring shone through. Nadine had a curious mind and a bright intellect, too. We've heard about how she was always learning. But she was an unassuming person, at least that's how I experienced her. When she was approached to give the annual Lemon Sermon here this year, an honor that one member is chosen for each year, she seemed surprised and deeply moved to be asked. If you heard her speak on July 3rd, you know that she then went on to present with deep insight and passion and poise on one of our Unitarian feminist icons, Margaret Fuller. If you missed it, by the way, you can find it in the archives on the church's YouTube channel. Nadine really inspired with her authentic sharing. She spoke from her heart. More often, though, Nadine was helping us to hear others' voices. On the worship arts team, she was eager to work with speakers who brought diverse perspectives into our sanctuary. Just in the last couple of years, she helped our congregation engage in worship with the challenges facing immigrants and refugees, with climate justice, with building the beloved community in this congregation through the 8th principle. Nadine hosted in our pulpit voices from Native America, from our sister church, as we've already heard from Pastor Portia. And on multiple occasions, she hosted transgender people and allies speaking about those challenges in our sanctuary. And she was slated to do that again next month, actually. We've heard she was part of our sister church program, Building Ties, with a Black church in North Omaha that does much to serve the wider community. And I think that Nadine would be pleased that many folks brought canned goods today for Claire's Food Pantry in honor of her service there and to continue to support that ministry. She was also getting involved with a new team that's forming here to renew our work as a GLBTQ welcoming congregation. So I hope we continue that heartily with Nadine on our shoulder cheering us on. I've learned a lot listening to some of you today. I didn't know that much about Nadine's life story. I can only guess at the changes that she witnessed in society and the challenges that she faced personally over her 85 years as a woman in the heartland. Whatever hardships she might have suffered, I saw no bitterness in Nadine. She managed to remain pure in heart. You know what I mean? There was just a goodness there. And she was determined to quietly spread love. And she did that with me too, as a new minister here, in her gentle way. As she was anticipating that move from her home in Council Bluffs, and I went up those steps once, over to a simpler spot at Elmwood Towers, Nadine gave away a treasured item. I guess it was a time to give things away for her. Over Zoom calls, and we'd had a lot of those my first year or two here, she had heard me admire the houseplants that were always hanging behind her in the spot where she did her Zoom calls. And she remembered this as her move neared and offered me her spider plant. And like Nadine, the spider plant it's easy to be with, it never stops growing, and it turned out to be a gift that keeps on giving. Okay, some of you know spider plants, it sounds like. So if you don't know spider plants, it's not a showy or exotic plant. It looks ordinary. It has narrow green leaves that flow out from a central point. It's pretty basic. But the simple spider plant has vitality and resilience. It's a hanging plant that gets its name from the way it sends long trailing stems into the air from which these small plantlets sprout. And the baby plants vaguely resemble spiders. And somehow, on the strength of air, soil, and sunlight, they spread profusely, one plantlet cascading down and then another. And if it was right here, it'd be like it would be touching the floor probably. Nadine's spider plant had a few baby spiders hanging off of it when she gave it to me, 3 or 4 as I recall. More appeared as I cared for the plant for some months in my church office, where the trailing stems flowed over a shelf. And when I took the plant home and hung it from the ceiling in a sunny window, the rate of new spiderlets increased sharply. I counted last night. Unfortunately, 1 or 2 fell off as I was counting them, but there are now 27 baby spiders on this spider plant from Nadine. And that's after 5 that I took off last spring to start a new pot. So now when I look at this plant, I see more than just a pretty big plant with some babies. I see a legacy of growth and care that passes down from person to person, down these 3 generations so far and all of the generations to come of her family, through the community of friends and even strangers touched by Nadine's spirit. At one point, I'd actually thought about harvesting some of these baby spider plants and using them to start new pots to give to church members. The church has a tradition of doing that with ivy plants. And the last time we did a membership ceremony, ivy was kind of scarce. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe I can use these baby spiders from Nadine. That would be kind of cool. We didn't end up needing to do that. But I love the image of that because it's an image that conveys how the caring spirit that shone from her can't be contained in the Nadine that we were able to hug in her body. It cannot be limited in the time that she was with us. I invite you to close your eyes now as I offer a pastoral prayer. Spirit of life, come unto us as we mourn the loss of a dear one. There will be no more birthdays or holidays with Nadine, no more meetings with her or worship services she leads, no more quiet talks or ethnic dinners or fun outings. Even as we cherish each day that we are given, witness our sadness at what is to be no more. Spirit of love, help us to remember at the same time that the love, the care, The respect for each person that Nadine embodied, that has no endpoint. It will continue to ripple out into the world through all of us whose lives were touched by her. It will continue to be passed on by all whose hearts are stirred to act on her example of compassionate action and making good trouble. Spirit of goodness, fill our hearts with gratitude for all the ways that our lives have been enriched by knowing Nadine Keith, by the new foods and people and ideas that she introduced us to, by her generosity and her modesty, and, if I may say so from this pulpit, her badassness, which apparently is an adjective she accepted from a friend. Her gratitude for her reliability and her joy and her curiosity. All of these remain with us as a source of comfort and inspiration. May we celebrate her life and honor her memory by sharing this spirit with others in turn. May it be so. Amen. Now a musical pause with our pianist, John Lim.
Sing along, people. She's a happy woman. Let's honor her. When the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in, oh, when the stars begin to shine, oh, when the stars begin to shine, oh Lord, I want to be in that number. When the stars begin to shine, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh Lord, I want to be in that number. Oh, when the saints go marching in.
Each person here had a unique relationship to Nadine, and the process of grieving will unfold differently for everyone. I know for a lot of us it's taken some time to sink in that she's really gone. Please know that I and our caring team are available to offer support privately if that would be helpful. I share with you words of Edward Frost. I shall die, but not for nothing. I shall have given and received. I shall have loved and been loved, captured and set free, known joy and sorrow, each fully to the soul. I will die, but not as the tree dies, hollow within. I shall die like the tipping over of a brimful urn. Those in the sanctuary are invited to join us downstairs in the common room for a reception. If you're on Zoom, you have the option to stay for a breakout room so you can chat and reminisce with one another. However you have joined us, thank you for being here to celebrate the life of Nadine Keith. As the postlude plays, I'll escort Nadine's son Eric to the foyer, and if you'd like to connect with him before you leave, if you're not coming downstairs, you can do that back in the foyer. Others can follow us as you're ready.